What's up, folks, and welcome to another indie showcase. So this one's a pretty different kind of game than a lot of the ones I've covered lately or even seen lately, and I'll be honest with you, I've kind of had my fill of it after a couple of hours, but I wanted to show this off because it is very different and it's got some neat traits to it that I think some of you might find interesting. So this is Aviano or Aviano, I'm not sure what it is, Dimensional Quest. Comes to us from a very small Italian team, and it's supposed to be a game about hang gliding that ends up with weird interdimensional stuff happening. When I saw the trailer for it, I was kind of like, okay, that sounds really cool. I want to check that out. And I put some time into it, and while this game can definitely give you a lot of gameplay time, it's a little thin, and unfortunately, at least what I've discovered so far, this being first impressions, of course, the dimensional part of it is pretty thin and not very well used, which is a bit of a bummer. So, as I said, this is a game about hang gliding, but it's principally about flying through rings. And some of you older school gamers may be getting, Superman 64 flashbacks here. It's not that bad. It's not even remotely close to that bad. And as you can see here, there's quite a different number of things you can do here. There's the campaign, which is the story mode, which is what we'll be doing. There's a sort of a player versus player split screen mode that you can do. And there's different ring attack and time attack modes. These are just challenge modes on the existing maps. There's also just what they call a relax mode, which is just where it loads you into a level with nothing to do and you just fly around and kind of enjoy yourself. There are a decent amount of achievements in this. There's also a hangar where you can unlock, where you can get different skins for your hang glider, as well as unlock 2 different models. Both of these models, I don't know if they have any functional difference, but after hours of playing, I'm not nearly at the point of being able to buy even the cheaper one, certainly not the more expensive one. You see the point count up there. You earn those by playing the game and by flying through rings, but you only get a small handful at a time, so it takes a long time to get up to where you can get these bigger items, but those are things that are there as well. So there is a story in this. The game has an intro. I'm not going to play it. You can re-review it at any time, but not to be mean, it's horrifically translated. This game actually lists translators in the credits, but the intro to this reads like one of those older sort of meme videos of the intro for some old Japanese arcade games where they barely make any sense. Yeah, that's kind of what this one is like, unfortunately. The core of it is that you're playing as a scientist who discovered an artifact that had this weird sort of interdimensional looking thing hidden within it, and you're trying to discover what it's connected to, which involves flying at high altitude. That's basically the idea. So what happens in this is that you will go into a series of different maps, and this is the part that I think is actually quite interesting about this game. I'm actually going to go back to an older level here so that I can show you. You're going to go into these various different maps, and you can see there's quite a number of them here, and you may wonder, geez, how long have you played this to only unlock 4 of them? Well, I'll explain why that is. So you go into these and you will do 10 different levels on the map. And these levels involve taking a certain flight path and flying through rings. That is the entirety of your objective in these levels, is to go through rings. And you'll go through 10 of these things, and then you'll have a level where you will go into this weird alternate dimension that is talked about in the intro. And then once you go into that, you'll have to find an artifact and get your way out. And those levels are actually kind of interesting because the environment almost looks like Zen from Half-Life. Again, I'm dating myself a little bit there, but it is very, very different, looks very alien, actually really cool design. I'll show you what one of them looks like. I think they personally look really, really cool. And you have to go in there, find an artifact, and get out, and you'll have no direction. The artifact and the exits are pointed out with sort of spinning arrows in your view, but it's not super obvious, and you're going to have to fly around for a while and make sure that you can keep yourself airborne long enough in order to do that. That concept is kind of cool. The problem is that, at least so far, there's only been one of those for every map. It's 10 levels of flying around doing stuff like this of various difficulties, and 1 level of the extra dimensional stuff, which is what really was the draw of this game. And to me, the trailers looked a little bit misleading to me because they indicated that there was a lot more of that. At least to me, they indicated that there would be a lot more of that than there actually has been. And I don't know, maybe it amps up later on, but after multiple hours playing this game, it hasn't yet. And that's been a little bit disappointing. Now, you may be wondering, okay, you usually like to showcase games that you think are cool, and you haven't been too kind to this one so far. So that's the thing, though. I want to show this off because there are things about this that I think could be appealing to some people. As you sort of saw there, the environments in this game are very, very pretty. I think some of the environments that you'll fly around actually look pretty nice. There's also sort of a zen element to this, because while there is challenge involved, obviously, in flying around these different environments and these different doing these different sort of ring chase missions, it is kind of a zen thing. It's not super high speed, and it's a very good what I call second screen game, which is I have a selection of games that I like to play while I have Netflix or YouTube or something up on my second monitor, and this is very good for that. Actually, and that's not something I say to disparage it, not at all. I actually think that there are games like that I quite enjoy, and this is very good for that, because while you do have to pay attention to what you're doing, it doesn't demand so much of your attention that you can't be doing something else at the same time. So it's kind of good for that. And it's just sort of nice touring around these areas, you know. I think it's pretty cool. The game runs quite well. Yes, I'm on a bit of a behemoth of a computer, but I think this would run very well for most people. The environments are very nice, and there's a simplicity to this gameplay that I like. Yeah, it's just flying through rings, but as an old school gamer who came up, you know, in the era where games mechanically were much more simple by necessity, I kind of like this to a certain degree. It's just... you know, there's not a massive UI, there's not 19 things you have to manage, there's not 19 million keybinds that you have to remember. It's just, you know, it plays fine on a keyboard or mouse, or controller, I should say. It actually doesn't use the mouse at all, it's actually either keyboard or controller. And I do, in a way, kind of like the simplicity of this, you know, that you're flying around and you're doing these ring challenges, touring this cool environment, and you are getting progression and reward out of it. There's something to be said for less is more sometimes, and I do enjoy that. Now, I've been doing the starter levels in these areas, so this may look pretty easy. Some of these do get quite challenging. Some of these you have to deal with moving at very high speed. You have to try to avoid the ground in very tight spaces. Some of them, the rings are like 90-degree turns away from each other, and you have to sort of figure out how to manage making some rather difficult turns. And as you saw at the end of one of the previous levels, this does the whole scoring thing based on how quickly you complete it. There's gold, silver, and bronze medals, and there's achievements tied to certain things that you'll do in the game as well. So there's a lot of things to that. Oh, hey, speaking of, I've flown through 1,000 rings in total, apparently. Neat. So... you know, there's a lot of different elements to it in that respect, and there's a lot of different modes, and the simple fact is, from a pure hours perspective, this game will take you quite a while to get through, because there's 11 maps in every area, which take a few minutes each to complete, plus all the additional challenge modes in that. There's a lot of stuff to do in here. Like, this is not a game you'll finish in 90 minutes or anything like that. Far from it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you guys one of these interdimensional levels. And that's the thing, though. This is a game that was clearly... oh, can I not select the interdimensional level? Looks like I have to go through stage 10 first. Okay, well, we'll try that. So... go. This is a game, though, that was clearly made by a very small team on a budget. You may notice that a lot of the music in the game has a very stock quality to it. You have lost the ring. Go. So you can see there's some bad translation there. This is a tricky one to get through, actually, because of the speed. Yeah, this game does not use any original music. It's very clearly stock music. There's actually no musician in the credits. Every level does have a different song, but they get very old very fast, because you're going to hear the same song over and over and over again as you go through the levels. And they use this weird pitch shifting thing to try to make them sound a little bit different each time. So if you replay a map, sometimes the song will play a little bit faster or a little bit slower to try to differentiate it, but it's still the same song. It really needed more variety in that respect. Now, if you're second screening this game, you would probably just turn the music off, which is fine. When the game does try to do things like the tutorials, they're not only badly translated, but they're done in what's clearly a machine voice, as in they fed the text into a text-to-speech system. You know, it's not just badly translated in terms of the fact that it doesn't make a lot of linguistic sense. Sometimes there's a lot of typos in it, things like that. Does it affect the gameplay? Not especially. And to be honest, while this game does have a story, it's so threadbare that you're really not going to pay that much attention to it. You know, this game is really about the mechanical elements of it. And I understand they had to have a story element here in order to justify the interdimensional things about this, but the disappointment for me is that at least so far, they really don't appear to have utilized that to any significant degree. There's very few of those weird and different levels, which is what I personally really came here for. And they just don't utilize that very much. And even the mechanics in those levels are not very different. Oh, this is cool. I guess it's not even going to let me replay that interdimensional level. Well, that's a real bummer. That sucks, because I really wanted to show one of those to you, but effectively, it's instead of chasing through rings, you have to grab an object and get out and sort of find your way. That's really the idea of it. I swear I was able to get one of these working before, but I guess I wasn't. So, yeah. So, and that's the thing. If that story does get more involved, then I don't think they paced it very well. Because I'm hours into the game, and all I've gotten is the one cutscene at the beginning. And so you can see how this is getting a little bit more complicated here in these later areas. I got the one cutscene at the beginning, and I've gone into these other areas where I've gotten an artifact and gotten out, but no more narrative exposition was provided after that. And if it gets better later, okay, cool, but you can't... Oh, see, I screwed this up here because there's a lot of wind. And it just starts you right back over again. If there's a lot of narrative exposition in that comes later, I mean, cool, but you can't expect... Your story can't get good after 10 hours. You've got to get people hooked and keep them going much earlier than that. So I'm not convinced that things are going to get better, and if they do, it requires a lot of investment from you, that unless you're really, really into this core mechanic, and you might be, yeah, it's going to require a lot of your time. And that's why I wanted to show this to you guys, because this was a rookie effort, clearly, from a new team, and they did some things really well. Like I said, I think these environments are very nice. I think the actual core mechanics of flying around work pretty well. I like the sort of simplistic Zen mechanical quality that this has. A lot of people are not. A lot of people are going to go, this game is way too simplistic, you know, there's not enough here for me. But some people might go, yeah, you know what, I just kind of like a simple game about flying through rings. You know, sometimes, again, less can be more and can be enjoyable, right? And there's value to be had in that. And I think some of you might look at this and go, okay, this is pretty cool. But like I said, it's a game that was clearly not made on a budget, or on a big budget, and they tried to... I feel like they tried to focus their efforts on certain elements of it. So the environmental visuals, having a lot of different levels, things like that. Storytelling and sound design seems to have been where they chose to spread things a little bit more thin. That's not necessarily a bad thing, you know. If you've got a limited budget but you have a thing that you want to make, you've got to put your money where it's going to do the most good. And from a perspective of making the game enjoyable, I think they probably did that. But there's a lot of content to it. There's a lot you can do in here. If you want to do the challenge modes, if you want to unlock all the other if you want to unlock the other two aircraft, if you want to do the split screen stuff, there's a lot you can do here. But if you're coming to this if you're coming to this for the story, I think you're going to be disappointed. And that's where I'm disappointed, because the trailers for this really marketed this to me as something that it has, at least at this point in, it has not delivered yet, which is a bit of a shame. So I'm probably going to be done with this, but I don't like to do, I've said this before, I don't like to do indie showcases to just dump on games. There's plenty of other YouTubers that do that. You know, if a game is truly bad and horrific, I just won't cover it at all. But even if a game doesn't resonate with me, if it's a game that I think could resonate with other people, I still want to show it off and give people an opportunity to go, yeah, you know what, that looks kind of cool. I might give this a shot. And I hope I've done that here, because I do think this game will be appealing to a certain segment of people. And I want to make sure that those people have an opportunity to see it. Far as I know, it's only on PC right now, but there's been some hints, if you look at some of the menus in here and stuff, that they're planning to bring this to other platforms. I'm certain this could run quite well on basically anything that's out in the market right now, including stuff like the Switch. So it could get an interesting audience that way. I think if they, you know, if they keep it priced, if they price it appropriately, it could appeal to that certain group of people. But I don't think this is a game that's going to have necessarily mass appeal, but I don't necessarily know if they structured it that way either. I think this game, with some of these sort of budgetary cuts that I've talked about here, it feels like they maybe knew that they were making something with a bit more niche appeal, and they budgeted it accordingly. And I like devs who do that. Devs who are like, I don't want my game to be for everybody, and I'm going to price it so that it doesn't have to sell a hajillion copies to work out. You know, I can respect that. And I think that's sort of what they did here. So, you know, in the minutes I've been playing this here, you've really seen the majority of what the game has to offer. So you're either going to be into this or you're not. If you're not, then I don't think anything I've done here is really going to sell you on it. But if this sort of simplistic, you know, but also enjoyable gameplay method is something where you're kind of like, yeah, I could get behind that, give it a try. I think you might be interested. Just maybe turn the music off and don't expect a miracle from the perspective of story, is what I would say. So, yeah, that is Aviano Dimensional Quest. Like I said, it's got some value to it, but it doesn't really resonate with me, and I don't see myself spending a crazy amount more time with it. But I hope there's some people out there who are out there who were looking for this kind of thing, and that this can satisfy it for you, because there is something to it, even if it's not necessarily for me. So thank you all very much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you did like what you saw here, please do all the YouTube things. Subscribe, like, hit the bell, tell other people that we're here, and help us bust through the algorithm. And if you are interested in variety, I do multiple variety live streams a week over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction. We have a small but great community over there, and I play a lot of different games, including some other indie stuff that you might not find on this channel, stuff that's more suited to live streaming rather than video. So feel free to check us out over there. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you on the next episode of Indie Showcase. You folks have yourselves a good one. Take it easy, everybody.